Okay, I want you to look at the timeline. Like, really look at it. On January 3rd, U.S. forces raided Venezuela. On January 7th, the ice crackdown in Minnesota turned deadly. On January 12th, the crisis in Greenland escalated to NATO troops landing.
It looks like the world is suddenly falling apart all at once. But what if we told you that all those dates align perfectly, almost to the hour, with something happening in a federal court in New York?
We have spent the last month reporting on the chaos. Today, we're going to talk about the reason for the chaos, because there is one thing that Donald Trump and his allies are terrified of. It isn't Russia. It isn't China. It isn't even the Democrats.
It is a stack of 16 specific files that mysteriously disappeared from a Department of Justice website last month, and the grand jury testimony that is scheduled to be unsealed next week.
Today, we're asking the question nobody in the mainstream media wants to touch. Are we watching a geopolitical crisis? Or are we watching the most expensive distraction campaign in human history?
If you think we're reaching, just take a look at how the president is acting.
On Tuesday, the same day the Greenland crisis spiked, Donald Trump was touring a Ford assembly plant in Michigan. He was up on an elevated walkway, waving to workers.
And then one worker, a guy in a hard hat risking his entire career, shouted 2 words at the president: pedophile protector.
The video, which TMZ leaked, shows Trump stopping dead. He turns to the worker, screams an expletive, and then raises his middle finger to his own citizen.
The White House isn't even denying it. But you do have to ask yourself, why is the man commanding armies in Venezuela and Greenland losing his mind over a heckler in Michigan?
Because that heckler touched the one nerve that exposes the entire game. Trump isn't angry because he was insulted. He is angry because he's terrified. And he isn't the only one.
To understand why everyone is panicking now, you have to look at the timeline. It tells a story of a cover-up that is collapsing in real time.
So go back to November 19, 2025. Congress passes the Epstein Files Transparency Act. The vote was 427-1. It was veto-proof. Trump signed it because he had no choice. The law was simple: release everything by December 19th.
December 19th comes. The DOJ releases a dump, but it wasn't the full files. It was a mess of redactions and black ink. And then something strange happened. For a brief window, the unredacted files went up. Then the site crashed. When it came back online, the file number skipped. Documents 174 through 190 were gone. Vanished.
So the DOJ called it a technical glitch. They said those files were improperly processed. That was a month ago. They haven't been seen since. Now, Al Jazeera and other international outlets who managed to scrape the data before the crash reported that one of those missing files included a photograph.
It allegedly shows Donald Trump, Jeffrey Epstein, and a third redacted woman standing in a location that was not Mar-a-Lago. And it wasn't public property either. It looked like a private residence. And look what happened immediately after that. On December 23rd, a second batch was released. It confirmed Trump flew on Epstein's jet far more times than he ever admitted.
And then, suddenly, the world caught fire. January 3rd, Venezuela raid. January 12th, Greenland troops. The distraction machine kicked into high gear exactly as the files started getting dangerous. And that's the pattern. Every time the court sets a deadline for those missing files to be restored, a new global crisis erupts. It's almost like clockwork. The court says, release the files, and the White House says, look over there, we're invading Caracas.
But why? We already know that Trump knew Epstein. We've seen the photos of them at parties in the 90s. We know they were friends. So why blow up the world to hide more photos?
Well, because the rumors and the leaks suggest that this isn't just about parties anymore. It's about Doe 174. The Daily Beast released leaked audio tapes just before the election where Epstein described himself as Trump's closest friend. Not just a buddy, a confidant. Epstein claimed on those tapes that he knew things about Trump's marriage, his business dealings, and his debts that could topple the tower. If Trump is compromised, if there's video or financial proof that he was involved in the worst crimes imaginable, then he isn't just a flawed president, He's a puppet.
And that is why they are willing to risk a war in Greenland. That is why they are willing to risk a civil war in Minnesota. Because compared to the truth about Doe 174, a war is manageable. A war can eventually end. The release of those files would end them all.
Now, let's talk about the grand jury. This is the ticking clock that's driving everyone crazy in Washington. Unlike the police files, which can be redacted by the DOJ, grand jury testimony is different. It is raw. It is under seal of the court, not the president.
In November, a federal judge ruled that the new Transparency Act supersedes grand jury secrecy. That means those transcripts where victims testified under oath about exactly who did what are legally required to come out.
The DOJ, led by Trump's cronies, tried to stop it. They argued it would violate privacy and harm the reputation of uncharged individuals. The judge said no. The deadline for release is next Tuesday.
So ask yourself, if you were a president who knew your name was all over those transcripts, what would you do to make sure nobody was paying attention next Tuesday? You'd probably make sure the news was covering, I don't know, a civil war in Minnesota or a nuclear standoff in the Arctic.
You would create a noise so loud that the sound of a file dropping on a website is completely drowned out. This is what magicians call the prestige. You look at the hand waving the flag, so you don't see the hand shredding the document.
But here's the twist that proves this isn't just a Trump problem. It is a power problem. Because look at who else is running for the exits.
Bill and Hillary Clinton. On Tuesday, the same day Trump was flipping off that worker, the Clintons informed the House Oversight Committee that they would refuse to testify.
They were subpoenaed to answer questions about their own relationship with Epstein. Their lawyers sent a letter calling the request invalid and accusing the committee of trying to punish political enemies.
Chairman James Comer is now threatening to hold a former president and Secretary of State in contempt of Congress. That's a criminal charge. The Clintons are risking jail time rather than sit in a chair and answer questions under oath about Jeffrey Epstein. And then you have the media trying to run interference. Sean Hannity over on Fox this week, and what did he do? He looked straight into the camera and he told James Comer, Trump never flew on the plane.
That's a complete lie. The flight logs released on December 23rd show his name. We have the documents. Everyone knows it. But Hannity isn't talking to us. He's talking to the base, trying to keep the blinders on. Because if the base realizes that their guy is just as compromised as the Clintons, the whole movement collapses.
So why is the temperature spiking right now? Why start a war in Greenland this week?
Well, it's because of two men, Ro Khanna, a Democrat from California, and Thomas Massie, a Republican from Kentucky. These two are the odd couple of Congress, but on January 9th, they sent a letter to the federal judge Paul Engelmeyer that terrified the White House.
They accused the Trump administration of criminal violations for withholding the remaining files. They said the DOJ is breaking the law by hiding the missing 16. But they didn't just complain. They asked for a remedy. They asked the judge to appoint a special master.
So for those who don't speak legalese, a special master is an independent third party who walks into the DOJ, seizes the files, and releases them. No attorney general involvement, no White House review, no glitches.
That means as early as next week, an independent agent could be walking out of the DOJ with the unredacted files on a hard drive.
That is the deadline. That is why Trump is flipping off workers. That is why the Clintons are hiding. That is why they suddenly need to invade Venezuela, and they need a crisis so big that it justifies sealing the records for national security.
But what is in those missing files? What could be so damaging that it's worth risking World War III over? Well, we got a hint of it from Trump's own biographer, Michael Wolff.
Wolff said that in the 90s, Trump and Epstein were so close that they actually shared a girlfriend. He specifically mentioned a Norwegian model in the 1993 or 94. He said that whatever the arrangement is, back and forth, this is their shared joke.
So think about what that implies. This wasn't just two rich guys at the same parties. This was a sharing arrangement. And if that arrangement extended to the underage girls Epstein was trafficking, then Trump just isn't a witness. He's a participant.
And remember the leaked emails from the Epstein estate released in November? Epstein wrote to an associate that Trump knew about the girls and that Epstein was the one able to take him down.
And that's the phrase that keeps haunting me. Take him down. If the missing files contain proof of that, proof of shared life, shared crimes, and shared victims, well then Trump's presidency is over the minute they leak.
And he knows it. And that's why Attorney General Pam Bondi is stalling. That's why Gavin Newsom is trolling all of them online, posting edits of Trump partying with Epstein with the caption, "Pam Bondi, release the files."
It's turned into a dark political game. The Democrats want the Trump files out. The Republicans want the Clinton files out. But the truth is, they're all in the same bucket, and they're all praying for a distraction.
From up here in Canada, this looks less like a conspiracy and more like a collapse.
Yep, we are watching a neighbor tear itself apart to protect a few powerful men. And we're paying the price as well. Our oil prices are swinging because of the Venezuela distraction. Our Arctic is militarized because of the Greenland distraction.
And we have our own demons in this too. Peter Nygaard, the Canadian fashion mogul, is all over these files as well. And this isn't just an American sickness. It's a Western elite sickness.
But the difference is, in Canada, Nygaard's in jail. In the US, the people implicated are running the government or refusing to testify to Congress.
And that brings us back to the Ford plants. When that worker shouted pedophile protector, he wasn't just heckling, he was speaking for the millions of people who are tired of the gaslighting.
He was suspended, by the way. The union says he's off the job. That's the metaphor, isn't it? Speak the truth, lose your livelihood. Start a war, keep your presidency. But luckily the people understand and have raised over $300,000 on his GoFundMe, so that's a good thing.
So what happens next week? Well, the judge's deadline is Friday. A decision on the Special Masters Council could come as early as Monday or Tuesday.
If the special master is appointed, the clock strikes midnight. The DOJ loses control of the cover-up.
And that is the moment of maximum danger, because if Trump believes those files are coming out, he's going to want a distraction bigger than Venezuela. He wants a distraction bigger than Greenland. And that might be what's the most scary part of this, because he needs a distraction that shuts down the courts entirely.
So our advice is simple. Don't look at the fireworks, look at the docket in the Southern District of New York. If the files stay buried, the wars will continue. If the files come out, the system crashes.
So we want to hear from you. Do you think the special master will actually get appointed, or will national security step in to stop it?
And let's be real, videos about the missing files, they don't exactly get sponsorships. We rely entirely on you. And if you want to keep us independent and digging for the truth, please consider joining the A-Team right here on YouTube. It literally helps us keep the lights on.
And if and when those files drop, we will be breaking them down line by line on our Substack. So make sure you're signed up there and join the community on Facebook where we can talk about this without the character limit. Hit like if you want the truth and not the spin, and subscribe so you don't miss what happens all next week.
Thanks for watching, everybody. Thanks for being here, and we'll see you tomorrow.